Support for this program comes from the French Market District, 6 historic blocks of retail and dining in the French Quarter. They offer a variety of shopping and dining experiences, complete with live music and local produce, artwork, jewelry, and gifts, open daily. Find special event and parking information at frenchmarket.org.
This program is made possible by the Sanger Theater, presenting the Gypsy Kings, Saturday, August 16th. They will play the traditional flamenco, Western pop, and Latin rhythms they're known for. Tickets at Ticketmaster.com. I'm Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, spotlighting the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene. Seated at our table tonight, Poppy Tucker, host of the WWNO program, Louisiana Eats. Hey, Miss Poppy.
Hey, Peg.
Still liking the hair. Looking great.
Thanks. And the heat.
Yeah. Mr. John Kemp, art columnist for Louisiana Life magazine. Hey, John.
Hey,
welcome
Peg.
back to our table.
Thank you.
And Alan Smason, editor of the online Crescent City Jewish News. And later on tonight, we'll hear from pianist Matt Lemmler and his New Orleans Jazz Revival Band. Looking forward to all of that. But first up, Miss Poppy.
Lots of going on North Broad Street at that old site of the Schwegman store. You know, the Whole Food moved in there, and now the Goldring Center for Culinary Medicine has opened up in there. Fantastic program with cooking classes for the community. It is a medical culinary program. So if you're in Tulane Med School, you attend this program. And it's a great, great project. So they're kicking off a fundraiser. They just moved in last week, and they're going to start a celebrity dinner series. And it's going to begin this month with Adam Biederman from Company Burger in September.
Great
then
picture.
they're going to move on to Justin DeVilliers from Le Petit Grocery in November, John Besh, of course, August and everything, in February, and then, surprise, April Bello and Camille Boudreau of Killer Poor Boys will be there in April. Now, this is a charitable event. It's $800 for all 4 dinners, but they only have a few places, and it's about half sold out right now. $300 of that is tax deductible, and your reservations are fully transferable, so you're not tied into that if for some reason you can't make it. Also, in the Refresh Center, Liberty's Kitchen, Cafe, and Coffee House moved over there last week, opened up. They're open Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can go for breakfast with delicious fresh baked goods.
And this is all at Whole Foods.
It's in the Refresh Center. Whole Food is in the Refresh Center too. That's the umbrella. And then you can go for lunch. It's an incredibly affordable lunch with yummy things like a Cajun Cobb salad, roasted chicken Caesar. Their sandwiches are made to order, some really good things. Burgers, poor boys, club sandwiches. But there's also a really good veggie burger made from black beans with melted cheese, guacamole, a cilantro lime mayo, lettuce and tomato on a seedless bun. Yum! And there's a really good roasted veggie sandwich. And they have traditional New Orleans food, etouffee, jambalaya, red beans and rice, and gumbo. So go have lunch, go have breakfast. Then I have to mention that little place, Bayou Rouge on Magazine Street. They have the best veggie burger in town. If you're trying to observe Meatless Mondays, if you're looking for a new way to eat your red beans on Monday, that is the most incredible tasty thing. It's made with red beans, cauliflower, squash, rice, and Parmesan cheese, pan-fried, then finished in the oven and dressed with a fennel arugula salad, garlic aioli, a sweet tomato vinaigrette. Yum! They're open for lunch Monday through Saturday, dinner Tuesday through Saturday. They do have their liquor license, and they have brunch on Sundays. And then another opportunity this coming week on Wednesday to dine out and do good. Eat Fit NOLA is having their first ever dine out at lunch and dinner. Proceeds from the day will, of course, benefit that really great program where there's cooking demos, there's nutritional information, and in over 50 restaurants in New Orleans, you can see that little Eat Fit NOLA symbol, which means that it's something yummy that is incredibly good for you. And Apolline, there's a bunch of them. All the Copeland's restaurants are participating, even La Costanita food truck, Phil's Grill. Who would think that you could eat Fit NOLA at Phil's Grill? But you can. Velvet Cactus, Vega Tapas. So go out on Wednesday. All of the restaurants are listed on their website at eatfitnola.com.
All right, Poppy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we turn to John. It is so nice to be able to talk about one of New Orleans' most beloved living artists.
Living artists, that's right. Well, Roland Golden, he's as you mentioned, he's one of the city's preeminent artists. He's been working for over almost 60 years now, and finally getting the recognition he's due from the city's major art institutions. Opened last week at the Ogden Museum of Southern Art was a show called Rolland Golden, An Alternate Vision.
And there's another show as well.
There's another show uptown at the Garden District Gallery. It's kind of it's related to it, but it's a little different work. And the one at the Ogden it's not a retrospective, but it's quite different. In fact, we have a little segment we want to show you first.
And before John though I have a chance to reflect on Golden's two shows. Thanks to WWL, we have a feature on Golden in conjunction with Golden's Ogden Museum opening. And now let's hear from Eric Paulson.
The 70 or so paintings and drawings featured here reflect the vision of a New Orleans native whose work is collected and admired around the world. He's a realist painter, but in this show it's the subtle and not so subtle touches of the abstract that draw your eye. Golden's been painting for nearly 60 years, but says his style and technique haven't changed all that much from 1967, when Channel 4's Bill Elder interviewed him in his French Quarter studio.
Well, my work is all very carefully planned. There's very little spontaneity about it. Anyone that knows anything about painting can look at it and tell that. I do a lot of sketching, but the camera has become an important tool to me, and I think to many other artists also. Then I'll do a quite detailed value drawing in pencil of the composition prior to the painting. And the painting actually comes from these little drawings that I do.
Some of those drawings are even on display in this show, as well as the paintings that grew out of them years later. These depict New Orleans scenes. And while Golden's work is much more than that, he says the French Quarter and the South have been major influences.
You're in the middle of old buildings, and I've always loved old buildings, and so I, first of all, was drawing French Quarter buildings and stuff like that, and gradually I would get my dad's car and go out into the country and Falls River and places like that, and do scenes of other subjects. So, but it was still the South.
Those early years in the Quarter are also the focus of his new memoir, Life, Love, and Art in the French Quarter. It's a great personal history of the Quarter in the 50s and 60s, when it was a haven for bohemians, artists, writers, and just like today, characters.
And it covers about the first 20 years of my career. It talks primarily about some of the trials and tribulations and things you go through as an artist.
The book begins with a chapter focusing on two important years Roland studied at the well-known John McCready Art School on Bourbon Street.
I was talented, and I could draw and things like that, but I learned particularly about composition, and because John was a real stickler for that kind of thing.
Golden soon opened a gallery of his own on Royal, which is about the time Channel 4 profiled him for a series of stories about his work and artistic style.
Your paintings reflect a great deal of realism. Quite frankly, the pictures that people can look at and admire. Do you feel any reason to defend this type of art?
Well, I don't think it needs to be defended, actually. But a lot of people do criticize realism today. I don't see where realism should be any less creative than any other form.
I evolved into who I am over just working every day, working. I worked so hard for so long, and I still work hard whenever I can.
And thanks so much to WWL producer Dominic Massa for this wonderful feature. And pleased to begin.
Okay, well, just give you a little background. He was born in New Orleans in 1932, grew up in the city as well as in the Mississippi Delta, and as a result, his family traveled all over Mississippi, his father's work. But he has a tremendous affinity for the South, in the history, the culture, the people, the landscape. And if you followed, if anyone's familiar with his career over the years, you see that southern landscape sort of goes all through his work. Starts with the wonderful highway scenes he's done, as well as paintings of the Delta. But what's really interesting, and he also did the Civil War series, pretty dramatic paintings of the Civil War battlefields, not just what he saw, but statues of soldiers dripping blood sort of thing to actually make a statement, because he did this during the Vietnam War, and he was making his anti-war statement, Vietnam statement, through the Civil War. And he did a number of paintings like this. But what's really wonderful about his work is that, true, he's a landscape painter. He reacts to the landscape not only emotionally, the cultural implications of the landscape, but intellectually too, because he uses certain devices, like you saw like this one, in fact, the Chinese checkerboard. He used dominoes. He used other checkerboards, and he used things that are totally unrelated and juxtapose them against. Well, in this case, you see the domino board and a cotton field in the distance, visually similar but totally different objects. He juxtaposed them to get a reaction, and he calls it abstract realism in his work. Yeah. This is a French landscape with gardenias floating in the moat, and the southern landscape is really a strong artist. Now, the show at the Ogden now is not really a true retrospective. What the curators were trying to do here was to show the surrealism in his work, how he uses surrealism in his paintings to create a whole different plane, to transcend the literal into something more intellectual. And this is another great series he did back in the 1970s when they were demolishing a number of the historic buildings in the Central Business District. This is the shadow of the claw coming down to pick up another historic landmark in the building. There are a whole series of this. In fact, didn't quite endear himself to the politicians in the city or the developers. This show is running through September 21st, and I really recommend seeing it. As I say, it's not a true retrospective from the beginning of his career to the present, but it covers a good bit of that time. There's another show that's a little different at the Garden District Gallery. It's called The Artistry of Roland Golden. And it shows more of his contemporary work, his most recent work, especially the Mississippi River series. He did a big series of paintings, the Katrina paintings that showed at the New Orleans Museum of Art in 2007. They moved to Natchez for a short time and did a whole series of paintings on the Mississippi River. This is the Jewish section of the cemetery in Natchez, Mississippi, overlooking the river. Yeah. And he told me he actually turned the tombstones around so we could actually, you could actually see the names on the tombstones. But this is a very strong show there, and it shows his contemporary work there. And I recommend seeing both of them. One complements the other.
All right, thank you so much, John. And moving on to a musical interlude on Saturday evening at the Old U.S. Mint, Matt Lemmler and his New Orleans Jazz Revival Band will do a musical salute to the 1970s. Here's Matt and his group, James Singleton on bass, Chris Adkins on mandolin, and Simon Lott on drums, with Randy Newman's 1974 hit, Louisiana 1927.
Happened down here, the wind has changed. Clouds rolled in from the north, and it started to rain. Rain real hard, and it rained for a real long time. 6 feet of water, the Straits of Evangeline. River rose all day, river rose all night. Some people got lost in the flood, and some people got away all right. River has busted clear down the Plaquemine. 6 feet of water in the Straits of Evangeline. Oh, Louisiana, they're trying to wash us away. They're trying to wash us away. Oh, Louisiana, Louisiana,
nice sound.
Talk about wonderful. Don't miss this musical salute to the 70s. That's Saturday night at the Mint, featuring music by the Carpenters, Marvin Hamlish, Billy Joel, and the Beatles, just to name a few. And for more information on Matt and his group, check out mattlemmler.com. And you can purchase tickets right there at the door on Saturday night. Wow, that's special. And now it's time for our Artist Spotlight. But before we do this, we get to visit with Mr. Alan Smason. Alan.
First of all, I'm wearing my Aladdin pin last week to acknowledge James Monroe Inglehart, who's the new genie on Broadway. But of course, this week to acknowledge the death, the passing of Robin Williams, and also another two-time Tony winner, Lauren Bacall. Wanted to at least acknowledge their passing this week. Locally, however, we have Bug at the WYES Theater. Directed by Chris Shaw, Bug is playwright Tracy Lett's attempt to weave a reasonable story about desperation and paranoia between a couple who are thrown into a seedy hotel room and unknowingly are drawn into the darkest recesses of fear and paranoia. Jen Pagan plays Agnes, an emotionally and physically abused divorcee who's trying to make ends meet as a waitress. Her ex-husband, Goss, played by Casey Groves, is back on the scene following a stint in the pen, and it's obvious that he's a sadist intent on establishing himself as a tormentor for her again. But this is a simple storyline that you think is going to go down the path where you've seen it before, a stalker, a tormentor. But no, Let's changes that storyline because she brings on to the scene R.C., played by Andrea Watson, who brings in a fellow who is sort of not all there, a sorrowful excuse for a human who at times is tentative, sometimes almost menacing, perhaps needing a male shield. Agnes latches on to this person who is played by Ian Hodge, and that's Peter. And Peter's in the center there, and Jan is on the left side with R.C., that's played by Andrew Watson. Perhaps because of her codependency, needing help from another man, trying to help herself in some way, they become embroiled in this codependent relationship that boils over into madness. The major component of their perceived malady is that of bugs attacking them. Now, these bugs are practically unseen aphids that are incapable of biting a human, but that doesn't matter to them. And they go down this dark path, perceiving how the bugs are implanted in them and how they're attacking them, etc. James Wright also has a character that he adds, a Dr. Sweet, to the menu, if you will, of characters. The cycle becomes more and more violent with horrific consequences at the end, as you can imagine. It is an adult drama. I have to tell you that there is a lot of nudity in the first act, but I believe it is really necessary to sort of get those two characters out and show their nakedness, if you will, their need to have one another, and their need to be stripping away all the layers of clothing and their past as they bond together. Jonathan Maris and Chris Shaw to be congratulated for a really thrilling adults-only presentation at the WYES Theater that plays through next weekend. Meanwhile, let's move on to another interesting program that's on at the Noka Black Box this week, and I believe next week will also be at the Noka Black Box and will end up at the Kirchman Art Space Theater at Noka. So here's the question. Have you ever heard of a secret society of assassins who are kept underneath the Ursuline Convent?
No.
Well, if you want to learn about that and more, you need to check things out at Saints and Sisters. That's Nuns with Guns in Old New Orleans. This takes place in the Prohibition era, and I have to say it's a delightful continuation of the radio program series that they put on at the Shadow Box. All of the characters do their sound effects. There is Carrie Cahill and Matt Stanley, and of course some of the other people who are in the cast: Cammie West, Angela Joe, Tony Bentley, of course, of racetrack fame, and Carrie, as I mentioned earlier, is in there as well as Jake Bardis. They do a great job of doing all the different voices. They have 6 different commercials in these 2 episodes labeled Welcome to the Rookery and Bad Habits Die Hard. And I loved it. I just thought it was a lot of fun. And if you like the old-time radio series, you'll love this. It's directed by Harold Gervais with a lot of nice music and other extra added compliments that he puts into it. So it's not just a radio drama. Also, this week, the Jefferson Performing Arts Society season was announced. And let's go over it real quickly. It's a massive season that they've got. And I will tell you, there's an extra one that they've just added, which is going to be in March, of Les Miserables at the end of March. But let's talk about Blueberry Hill. That's the return of Blueberry Hill, directed and written by Butch Care. That's going to be starting up in September. Then Waiting Around, the musical that we remember as the Black and White Blues years ago, that's coming back.
Oh, good.
And then Ballet High Sells The Nutcracker, the holiday favorite. Now, Blueberry Hill was the starter for the season. Ain't Got No Home is the second part of that. It's all original New Orleans songs by Butch Care again as the director and starring in it with all the characters returning. This will have all new songs and a whole new storyline, so it'll be very interesting.
New songs or songs from the 50s?
It'll be all songs from the 50s and 60s, from the era there, but it'll be mostly probably 60s. But again, the whole concept is great. And again, several other items that we wanted to mention. JPS having a great season. Ain't Got No Home is the continuation. Sex Please We're 60, an adult situation comedy. And The Lady with All the Answers. And again, as I mentioned, in between there is Les Miserables. We just announced that. So check out JPS's 37th season.
Wow.
A lot of great stuff. They have their Pasta Puccini event that's going to be coming up in the fall as well. You can support them at 885-2000.
Dennis Asaf keeps very busy.
Yes, he does.
Goodness, and his staff. Thank you. And now it's time. Now it really is time for our Artist Spotlight. Here is a photograph of George William Eggers in 1926 by American photographer Laura Gilpin, best known for her work depicting southwestern Native American tribes and landscapes. She was part of a network of female photographers whose careers emerged around the turn of the 20th century, creating a supportive network that led them into the next century. They greatly influenced the next generation of female photographers. Their work is part of the exhibit Sphere of Influence. Pictorialism, Women, and Modernism now on view at NOMA through next weekend. And visit noma.org to learn more. Visit WYES.org to see our online calendar. And you can see our program as well on demand on our website too. New Orleans Magazine's quiz queen, Julia Street, has a question for us. Last time, Jim Foley gave us the name of the New Orleans R&B performer who was one of the warm-up acts when the Beatles performed here. And one of his more famous songs, Clarence Frogman Henry, of course. And it could have been You Always Hurt the One You Love or Ain't Got No Home. Now, tonight's question. Andrew Jackson's home was in Tennessee, but what is the name of the home? And what city is it near? Email your answers to steppinout@wyes.org. Our prize is a Louisiana Life magazine subscription, a gift certificate for 2 courtesy of Vianne's Tea House, offering their culinary and gourmet tea experience. And that's in Old Mandeville. And tonight we have an apron as worn by WYES associate producer Ashley Richard Morris, who says, "Happy birthday, Julia Child, and go Saints." The apron's message, blind date, as in a date, okay? From our friends at wearablevegetables.com. And now our picks. Poppy.
Well, first ever beer dinner at Besh Steak with NOLA Brewing Company next Thursday night, 4 courses, $75.
Oh, John.
Well, the Arthur Roger Gallery on Julia Street is featuring the work of Lafayette artist Francis Pavey.
Oh.
It's called the Third Coast Suite.
All right, thank you very much. And oh, look, isn't that beautiful? He's been at it a while, too.
Yes, he has.
He really has.
And it's a transgression from what he usually does.
It is a little
Zydeco
different.
music figures and everything else, but these are landscapes.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Seussical Jr. opens at Rivertown Theaters for the Performing Arts this weekend. And also, I wanted to mention that Adelina Patti is at the Shadow Box this Sunday. Now, you say Adelina Patti. It's the Louisiana History Alive tour, if you will. They're having these Sunday salons. And check out our calendar for all the details.
Okay, great. And now my picks. The crew of the Rolling Elvi, one of our favorite crews, presents Prompadour 2014. It's a 1950s throwback prom party to commemorate Elvis Presley's passing in true King fashion. And it's at the Howling Wolf. That's tomorrow night. Tickets are just $10. And for more details, they can be found on the Rolling Elvi Facebook page. The month of August is New Orleans Museum Month. Free admission for museum members of participating museums plus 1 guest. Visit touristathome.com for all the details. The Historic New Orleans Collection is offering free guided tours of the Williams residence. If you've never been there, I really recommend it. And also their architecture and courtyard tour through August. And at the Williams Research Center on Charter Street next Wednesday evening, the HNOC offers Ties That Bind, Louisiana and Senegal. Doll, a free illustrated lecture by Erin Greenwald. She did Company Man recently, and also Melissa Carrier. Visit hnoc.org for more details on all of that. And don't forget, you can support WYES by attending the Fab Four concert, honoring the Beatles' visit to Tad Gormley Stadium in City Park 50 years ago to the date, September 16th. Visit WYES.org for more information. And now we leave you with a special tribute to Robin Williams. That's from Matt Lemmler. He'll explain that. And this is once again his New Orleans Jazz Revival Band. Thank you all very much, and thanks for watching. Good night.
I'm so glad we had this time together, just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before we know it, comes the time we have to say so long.
Support for this program comes from the French Market District, 6 historic blocks of retail and dining in the French Quarter. They offer a variety of shopping and dining experiences, complete with live music and local produce, artwork, jewelry, and gifts, open daily. Find special event and parking information at frenchmarket.org.
This program is made possible by the Sanger Theater, presenting the Gypsy Kings, Saturday, August 16th. They will play the traditional flamenco, western pop, and Latin rhythms they're known for. Tickets at Ticketmaster.com.